Okay, so today's guest lecture series on SDGs, we will have two wonderful speakers. The first one we have Dr. Bram Entrop from Section University of Applied Science, who will present a lecture entitled "The Adoption of Energy Technique and Measures in Residential Buildings: A Multidisciplinary Perspective." And also the second one, we will have wonderful presentations by Dr. Zakri Tarmidi from University Technology Malaysia, who will deliver a lecture entitled Social Sustainability Based on Location-Based Indicator for Residential Area. And not only we will have two wonderful speakers, in this session we will have a moderator by Dr. Sarah Cahill Phd from ITS also. Before we start our agenda, allow me to deliver our schedule today as follow. First, we have opening. Second one, we have introduction to moderator and speaker. Third, we have lecture session and followed by Q&A sessions. The next one, we have certificate awarding. And the last one, we have closing. Now, before we proceed to the next agenda, let me introduce our moderator. It's Dr. Cahyadini, PhD. Hello, Dr. Sarah.
Hello, Mas Dio.
Thank you so much for to be the moderator of today's sessions.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, before we start the sessions, I will introduce Dr. Sarah Cahyadini, PhD. So she earned her PhD in School of Architecture, Planning and Landscape in Newcastle University, and she completed her master and bachelor in architecture ITS Surabaya. And now she's appointed as a lecturer and researcher at the Department of Architecture of ITS. And in 2018, she was a team leader in inventory of slum problem in Blitar District Office. And also in 2011 to 2013, she was appointed as a team member at strategic series of coordinating Ministry for Economic Affairs. In 2002 and 2003, she was committee assistant at Surabaya Planning Board. Apart from her work experience, she also the member of International Council for Research and Innovations in Building and Construction, or CIB, and also she's a member of Ikatan Arsitek Indonesia. Also, she had a certificate in SIDA, Housing Design and Development, in 2009 and 2010. So, Dr. Sarah, now I will give the microphone to you to be the moderator of this afternoon session. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you very much, Mas Dio, for the kind introductions. Good afternoon, everyone. Participants, students, or maybe good morning for Okay. I'm Sarah from the Department of Architecture ITS. I'm also now in the laboratory for housing and settlements. And today I will be moderating these two wonderful speakers. And before we begin, please allow me to briefly introduce our speakers today. The first speaker is Associate Professor Bram Entrop. Good morning. He's from Section University of Applied Science. In 2013, he held the PhD degree at the University of Twente. He is now working as Associate Professor of Sustainable Environment section. And also from 2018, he's the Director of Entrop, Sustainable Consultancy Services for the Built Environment in Nieuwegein, the Netherlands. Do I spell it right?
It's not an easy city to pronounce. Nieuwegein.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nieuwegein. Okay. Thanks. His research interest covers various aspects of sustainability, including energy transitions, circular transitions, sustainable building policies, energy performance, and also energy techniques and measures that he will be presenting today. Thank you, Professor Entrop, for your coming.
You're welcome.
The second speaker is from University Technology Malaysia, Dr. Zakri Tarmidi. Good afternoon, Dr. Tarmidi.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sarah.
Yeah.
Also, Prof.
He earned his PhD in 2016 in GIS and Geomatics Engineering from University Putra, Malaysia. He is now working as a senior lecturer at the Department of Geoinformation. He is also a task force SWA Akreditasi Program Sarjana Muda Sains Geoinformatik. MOOC is the massive open course, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, he is also have an MOOC for the Department of Geoinformation, Faculty of Geoinformation and Real Estate. His professional memberships includes a member of Royal Institution of Surveyor Malaysia, and also a professional member of Institution of Geospatial and Remote Sensing in Malaysia. Dr. Tarmidi's interest in research includes geographic information science, spatial data infrastructures, and also affordable housing. I think this particular one will be delivered by him today. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tarmidi, for your coming also. And now I think we can start by the lecture. As I understand, each presenter will have around 40 minutes. And then at the end, we will have around 30 minutes for discussions and questions from the audience. But in the meantime, all of participants can type in your questions in the chat box. Okay, Professor Entrop, over to you.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. And I will share my screen. If I'm correct, you're now able to see my screen. Yeah, I see some confirmation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for checking out. Well, welcome. As introduced, a lecture about energy techniques and measures. This research I started conducting quite a while ago, is continuously going on, and also regulations are continuously adopted, because we are in an urgent need to lower our environmental impact in the built environment, as well as transport and all kinds of services and industrial processes. Today, I mainly will focus, have a contribution regarding SDG number 11, but you will see that also other SDGs can benefit from the insights I hope to share with you. I must say my context is focusing quite on the Dutch situation, so the situation as it is in the Netherlands. However, experiences have learned me that also in other countries, this method, I looked at these energy techniques and measures, could benefit society. For example, I also presented in Russia and also at other Indonesian universities, for example, and also at different conferences. So I hope these insights can also benefit you and your research or situation, even at home. We will see what happens. First of all, as introduced, I'm from Zakri University. This is our university in the Netherlands. We have 3 locations in the eastern city of Enschede, in Deventer, and in Apeldoorn. These city names are probably not that easy to pronounce for you, but that's the typical Dutch language, of course. We have around 26,000 students, and we work together with 2,800 lecturers, teachers, and all other forms of staff members, of course. I myself work at the School of Business, Building and Technology. It's one of the 9 academia at this university. In our research group, we focus on coming to a sustainable built environment. So we always are looking on how we can make it possible that the adoption of multiple techniques can gain speed. So we're always on the interaction of social research and technological research. Other research groups are much better in studying techniques and improving techniques. That's not our topic, so to speak, but we try to improve the adoption of these kinds of techniques. And therefore, we also need to be able to understand these techniques. So past contributions can be found in books for students, colleagues, but also political agendas, so that the government can gain speed in lowering the environmental impact of our built environment. And here you can see some contributions. Last but not least, I also worked on a book for children, so that they can become aware what it will mean how to come to sustainable water usage, for example. We need to start at an early age, namely to influence, to have an impact on these children and make them aware of what their water consumption affects. But just to give you an impression on what we are doing. As promised, the focal point will be on SDG 11. So here we have an overview of multiple SDGs, but well, we can also see, of course, direct relations when we're talking about energy use with SDG number 12, responsible consumption and production, and also, of course, SDG 13, climate action. In the broad scope of green buildings, you can see here the whole list of SDGs, but I will not go through them all one by one. So what's my presentation all about then? First, I would like to take you with me to the Netherlands, get some insights in what kind of residential real estate one might find. There are approximately 7 million objects, so we will not go through them one by one, but I will give you some insights in multiple residential real estate objects, what has been adopted till so far. Then I will introduce you to the original research design we conducted. We will talk about energy performance and how to assess energy performance. Then another important element, it's always about cost, investment costs, and how to regain them. So financial impact will be shortly discussed. And we will have a look at decision-making processes, because we can have all our arguments to adopt energy techniques ready, but if you don't embed it in the design and construction process, we still have a problem. These techniques will not be adopted, will not be implemented in the construction process. So that is also theoretical element of this presentation. These 3 insights regarding energy performance, financial impact, and decision-making processes have all been applied to a particular innovative energy technique, namely phase change materials. Phase change materials have the ability to store thermal energy, and we took a look at how phase change materials could be adopted in this Dutch context. And we will see that we had quite some barriers still involved, but we'll see that later on. And then, of course, we will finalize this presentation. So that's the setup for this afternoon to you, and for me this morning, so to speak. So the built environment in the Netherlands is there are quite some different objects. However, brickwork is in general quite commonly used. In more recent years, we see a higher adoption rate of timber constructions. And before the Middle Ages, we're also quite fond of timber constructions. However, after quite some fires, of course, and the brickwork came quite common. And still, most of our houses are constructed, are made out of brickwork. Of course, we have houses dating back from the 16th and 17th century. As you can see here, an overview of a typical street in Amsterdam, for example. But we also have much more modern versions, quite abstract objects. Still, underneath this facade, the brickwork consists, but more and more prefabricated concrete elements are in place, also to speed up the construction process. And quite recently, the latest factories came available in which we can prefabricate our houses. But these houses are quite seldom. But for the coming years, more and more houses will be constructed in huge factories, as is already for quite some decades common in Japan, for example. Of course, it's not an easy task to improve the energy performance of these kinds of houses dating back from the 17th century, because our insulation package was only a national guideline coming in an introduction in 1992. So that's approximately 30 years ago. And when did we improve the adoption rate of insulation? That is when the first and second oil crisis took place. So in the 70s of the last century, in the 70s, we started to experiment with insulation, but it took us till 1992 before it was a national regulation with a minimum insulation package. After 1995, the regulations quite steeply were improved. And nowadays, it's common that your house does not have a connection to the national gas grid anymore, for example. I will tell more about the national gas consumption later. And these are quite modern types of houses. We have quite many terraced houses, two houses beneath one roof, so that two houses are connected. That's quite common. And of course, also quite many detached houses. The number of people living in apartments is, compared to many other countries, relatively low. One would like to have their own garden in the front and the back of the house. That's quite common, although space is starting to get scarce. So we have approximately 8 million dwellings, and most of them use natural gas to heat space and tap water, because in the 50s of the last century, we found one of the largest natural gas reserves in the world in our province Groningen, in the northern part of the Netherlands. And the idea was that this natural gas needed to be consumed as quickly as possible. Why did we want to consume this natural gas in the 50s as quickly as possible? Because nuclear energy would be introduced, and when nuclear energy would be introduced, natural gas wouldn't have any value anymore. Well, we now know we couldn't be more wrong because nowadays, especially last month, the natural gas prices tripled here in the Netherlands. So in 1 month time, it increased from approximately 80 euro cents per cubic meter to more than 2.5 euros per cubic meter. And an average modern house of, well, 5 years old still consumes 800 to 1,000 cubic meters natural gas a year. That's an average, of course, depending on the usage of the building, the design characteristics, etc. And unfortunately, currently I'm presenting from a house constructed in 1908. And that means that I consume approximately 4,000 cubic meters natural gas a year. It's a rented house. Our new house is still being constructed, so I hope for the better in a short while with much lower energy consumption. I will not have a connection to the natural gas network anymore because new houses starting from January last year should not be connected anymore to the natural gas grid. However, in the 60s and 70s, the idea was still that we need to use this natural gas. So there was a great investments were done to get a natural gas grid. So that grid, that network of pipes is really dense in the Netherlands. We even have a network for military usage, etc. So the natural gas consumption is very high, and we're very depending on it, and it needs to change quite quickly because we decided not to use our own natural gas anymore due to earthquakes in the northern part of the Netherlands. So a great transition needs to take place. We introduced, therefore, and also as the European Union expects from us, so we introduced an energy label system for our existing houses, and still there was already for new houses a regulation system in place since 1995. But only in 2008, we officially adopted the energy label system for existing houses. A is the best performance, and G, as you can see by its colors, it's the worst performance to expect. What kinds of techniques are now then commonly adopted? Well, we can see a high adoption rate regarding photovoltaic panels. And so photovoltaic systems that produce electric energy to households that can be earned back within approximately 5 to 7 years. And most consumers think that's quite a nice time to earn your investment back. So photovoltaic systems are quite quickly adopted, and it is quite hard now to obtain them because all these companies are quite busy with installing them. In new houses, heat pumps are also quite commonly used now because you're not allowed anymore to use natural gas. So the first thing that comes into mind of people are heat pumps. Heat pumps making use of thermal energy coming from the earth, or thermal energy coming from outdoor air. LED lighting techniques are also commonly adopted. It's a no-brainer anymore. So everybody will now install LED lighting. And more often you see also heat pipes to be installed or more conventional thermal solar collectors. So that are the techniques which are increasingly being adopted in new buildings. For the existing building stock, we still have quite a challenge. So we wondered in our research setup how to develop a framework to assess the implementation potential of energy techniques and measures on the basis of their effects on and for stakeholders in residential building projects. So we have more or less 3 areas we were looking at, namely the energy performance, the financial impact, and the decision-making process in building projects. And somewhere in the middle, where everything aligns with each other, where everything is positive, perfect situation, there these energy techniques will be properly implemented. So we were looking for that particular spot, where to find it. Well, and then you first need to know something about how these energy labels are then being attached to those houses. Well, we have for new buildings, we have an energy performance coefficient up to the 31st of December last year. We had in the past, already more than a decade ago, an energy index based on the energy performance advice. So an inspector will come to your house, will have a look at your house, will assess all kinds of lengths and the type of insulation, the types of systems you have installed, and will decide for you what the energy index is for your building. And later on almost based on the same principles, but with the new calculation technique, we had the official obligated by the European Union Energy Performance Certificate. So the Energy Performance Certificate was more or less replacing the much older Energy Performance Advice, but not with all the improvements that were necessary, to be honest, but we will see what happens next. So we also conducted a study on 8 houses from different years, and you see all kinds of strange elements in these calculation methodologies. One might want to expect that if you conduct a calculation resulting in an energy performance coefficient or an energy index, that it will also more or less reflect on the actual energy of the building. However, that is not the case at all. Everything strongly depends on how you will be using your building. Who are the residents? What is their age? What is their day-to-day rhythm? That will have a huge impact on, of course, what the actual energy use is. And these 3 methodologies all try to reflect on an energy use that one might expect by a standardized usage of the building, considering its building-related elements. So the energy use of your refrigerator or your computer is, for example, not incorporated here. And that you leave your television on all day is not being regarded in these types of technologies. They also expect that you have a standardized temperature all year through in your living room and your bedroom, etc. So the relation, we are still looking for that relation between actual energy use and the theoretical planned energy use based on the design of the building. So we have 3 methods in place. However, all have the basic equation for that. On the upper side of the equation, one can find an assessed energy use based on the design of the building and its planned installed systems. And in the lower part of this equation, this area here, there is an allowable energy use. So when your house has a certain surface, floor surface and surface of the thermal shell, depending on the particular size of that, it's allowed that your energy use is slightly higher when your house is bigger and slightly lower when your house is smaller. And you need to be taking all kinds of measures, for example, improved insulation or a better heating system to be installed. You need to install some photovoltaic panels to make sure that this upper part in your equation is low enough. So in the end, this value, the energy index or the energy performance coefficient, because the setup of these equations are all the same, is as low as possible. For your idea, we started in 1995 for the energy performance coefficient with a value of 1.4, and last year it needed to be 0.4. So gradually the regulations improved in that part. However, having these three assessment procedures available, the energy performance coefficient, the energy index, the old methodology, and the new energy index materials, we still could see that quite some variables that are important to come to the actual energy of the building are not incorporated. For example, lighting was a fixed value, so a fixed value per square meter for residential buildings. For utility buildings, it wasn't. So there you could take measurements in your design and influence the outcome. However, for residential buildings, it was not possible. Also, the internal space allocation could not be changed. For example, houses where you place the bedrooms in the lower part of the building, so to get them at a lower temperature, for example, would not influence the energy performance coefficient of that particular building. And so are there quite some variables of which we do know that it has an impact on the actual energy use that have no impact on the energy performance as assessed in these methodologies. And that could be, of course, a proper decision. However, you should also communicate with the residents what they might expect for what the particular value actually means. And that communication was not always that good in the Netherlands, to be honest. So we come to an estimated energy demand, and the actual energy use quite strongly changed. In some cases, the actual energy use was 2 times or 3 times higher than what we would expect based on the energy performance as assessed with these kinds of methodologies. However, by the 1st of January, we have a completely new methodology. We call it the nearly energy neutral buildings. In short, in Dutch, BANG. It's a BANG building, but it now has 3 indicators. So we scaled up from 1 indicator per building to 3 indicators. Namely, you need to make sure that the maximum energy demand is not that high. You have a maximum primary fossil energy use that is not allowed to be exceeded. And there is a minimum percentage of renewable energy use sources that needs to be adopted. So we have now regulations per square meter that you're allowed to comply. That maximum energy demand changes slightly when your house is more or less compact. So they also gave thoughts about, well, if you construct a bigger house, you probably can also take more investments to make sure your building is more energy neutral than when you construct a smaller house, often associated with social housing, for example. So they also tweaked these kinds of values in this new methodology. So quite an advantage. Furthermore, a second indicator, not directly related to energy performance, but by increasing the insulation values, we experienced overheating in our buildings in July. And of course, in your country, overheating is much more an issue in the moderate climate of the Netherlands. So we need to heat our buildings approximately 8 months a year. But in July, temperatures rose too high. So we introduced an indicator that you need to comply to by taking measures to make sure overheating cannot take place. So you need to apply shading. You need to apply, for example, that could be a technique to be adopted, a heat pump with a cooling facility taking place, etc. There are multiple ways to to also comply with that regulation. So that's what we call the TO July. Please warn me when I'm heading for my time schedule, of course, Sarah.
Yes, you still have 15 minutes.
That's
around 10 minutes. Yeah.
Because we're heading to the financial elements in this regard. And when you do these kinds of investments, you always need to be aware that often you can buy certain techniques in a shop, but then they do not work properly yet. They are not installed in your house properly. You cannot use them directly. And many of these techniques already in the design stage of your building need to be taken into account. So it was also for us interesting to have a closer look at what's happening when we are aiming for these kinds of investments to improve the energy performance of your building. And we distinguish between non-recurring investments costs and annually, often annually or even monthly, recurring negative cash flows and recurring positive cash flows. And what we saw there is that often the investment cost for the physical products, here in the middle at the left side of my slide, so the investment costs for the physical products are quite clear. However, little time is spent on optimizing and adapting your design. So where should you, for example, locate your heating system to make sure it can run the best way possible? How to orientate your photovoltaic panels properly. And often it's quite interesting and quite beneficial to take slightly more time in optimizing your building design in relation to its systems. And so also could you maybe shift some of the investments in building related products and later on start looking at what kinds of installed systems could benefit you, could help you. So first optimize the building and also properly look at how it interacts with the systems. Furthermore, the cost of transporting and installing the systems was often underestimated. So it often takes much more time to the installer to make the systems run properly. You need to come back after 1 year, after 2 years, and after 3 years to optimize the installed systems and to run them smoothly and efficiently and effectively. And that are the non-recurring investments. So that's when starting, when constructing the building. And then annually, the user expects, of course, energy costs, but there was a strange situation that some energy techniques and measures even resulted in an increase of energy cost. Because for a heat pump, it was in the past quite common that you needed to have another network connection, and not 3 times 25 amperes, but 3 times 40 amperes network connection to the electricity grid, for which you needed to pay 3 times more in the Netherlands than for a lower connection to the energy grid. So you were installing a heat pump, expecting to have some financial benefit from it, and then you later saw on your energy bill that the cost increased because you needed to pay much higher network cost. Strange situation, and nowadays with better insulation packages, we can reduce the capacity of the heat pump necessary, and therefore we can also make use of the common smaller connection to the electricity grid. But for approximately 5 to 10 years, this was really a strange situation in the Dutch and quite painful experience for those who were early adopters. Then we have, of course, maintenance. With some decisions, you can reduce your maintenance costs. Other decisions will result in higher maintenance costs, and there you can see that it's particularly beneficiary to invest more money in insulation, because you will it's almost again a no-brainer. You will not have maintenance costs on your insulation. It's not that likely for sure. Reliability has systems with failures that are an issue. Improving user comfort can be interesting, of course, also in utility buildings when less employees are ill due to the better internal comfort, the better indoor temperatures. You will also benefit from that. Rebound effects, that's taking place, of course, in the case of LED lighting, for example. In the past, it was not that common to light your garden, your front garden and your back garden. Nowadays, we're lighting our facades, gardens, front gardens, back gardens, etc. So we experience a lower energy use on lighting systems. However, it could have been much lower if we did not start to light everything in our house. Even stairways are nowadays lit from A to Z. So that's a kind of rebound effect. Also leaving the light on during the whole night, because it will not cost you anything. So we just leave the light on, and it's still better, of course, to turn the light off. And a new element maybe for you is that we experience with houses with an Energy A certificate an increased value. And it started off around 2002 with a value increase of approximately 9,000 euros for a green energy label house compared to a red energy label house. That a value increase of approximately 9,000 euros. The real estate in the Netherlands is quite expensive, it's quite highly valued. So 9,000 euros is not that much, but if you assign it to an individual energy technique and make it an element of return on investment, then it could be quite interesting, because you only pay, for example, 5,000 euros to re-insulate your house, and your value increase by the energy label is maybe then, for that technique, 6,000 euros. It's already benefiting the complete scheme. And we also introduced an equation for that, so that you can assign a part of that value increase to a particular technique. And I will happily refer you to my thesis to have a look at that particular equation and how we introduced that on 2 cases. So this here in this formula, you can see that the total value increase, taking into account the depreciation over time of that technique, can result in a reduced return on investment time of the technique. What about these decision processes? Well, we took a look at 4 residential building projects where decisions were taken regarding the energy performance of these buildings. And although there was a regulation to come to an energy performance coefficient of 1.0, they, in all situations, they were aiming at a 10% improved energy performance. So 0.9 needed the score to be. And all kinds of discussions took place on how to come from that 1.0 to 0.9, which kind of extra investments needed to take place to make sure that you can come to that 0.9. And in this research, it became quite clear to us that the regulations as laid down in our national building code are not part of the debate anymore. As soon as the national government states you need to improve the energy performance, the contractors and architects will look for the cheapest possible way to come to that new score by means of their investment costs. So not return on profit times for the future user, unfortunately. And they will not have a debate that anymore. So they will improve insulation packages, They will start off with 2 or 3 photovoltaic panels on their roof, and then it's set for the next stage, the next improvement regarding regulations. And that's quite strange, of course. It would have been much better that we have an integral discussion about what you might expect regarding future usage of the building, what would benefit the future residential users. However, that discussion does not take place except when a municipality lays down an extra regulation by means of covenants, for example. So a gentleman's agreement with the architecture, the principal, and the contractor. Then the debate starts. And then you can see people are thinking about how to improve the design by means of architectural design and what to install regarding techniques. So that was quite a strange revelation for us. Well, what about these phase change materials then? Well, phase change materials have then the ability to store thermal energy at a particular temperature. And by that means it's a kind of battery, a battery for thermal energy. And we apply these phase change materials in concrete floors. So during the day when the people are at work, the solar irradiation entering a house will store some energy in the floor of the building. And when you come back later on during the early evening, when the environmental temperatures are dropping, these floors will start to give way the stored thermal energy. And so we conducted some experiments. We developed 4 boxes without these phase change materials and with different insulation packages. And we saw that these phase change materials, in this particular case, paraffin-based phase change materials, really had the ability to store solar thermal energy and give also during the evening way their heat during the summer day, of course, and also partly from spring to autumn. During the winter, you need to be aware that you will not heat these phase change materials with your fossil fuels, of course. So the change temperature of these phase change materials needed to be above 21 degrees, but not too much above this value, and therefore 23 degrees seemed like a proper temperature here in the Netherlands for our experiment. And what we saw is that if you have this technique available without any hard data or simulation software for an architect, then it's not likely that an architect, together with the advisors in these kinds of design and construction processes, will adopt your technique. You need to have everything in place so that you in advance can make clear that this technique will do what it's supposed to do. So without that simulation software, and we also experienced in other innovation, namely a double roof system that's being already introduced for more than 10 years, but you really need simulation software so that advisors can work with it. And then you also need to persuade the contractor to apply these techniques. Furthermore, in some cases, the owner of the building will not even be the user of the building. So you need to facilitate the communication between all these 5 different stakeholders, even more important actors, that have their position, their important position in this whole design and construction process. And therefore, we would like to make you aware of that. A design implementation needs to take place. Physical implementation needs to be guided. Marketing implementation needs to be taken, and user implementation when you are planning to introduce a new energy technique of measure. For all the entrepreneurs among you and for all the researchers with their new techniques, please be aware that these kinds of marketing techniques really need to fall in place when you're planning to introduce a new technique to the market. At least that would be our suggestion then. So to sum up, well, the implementation potential of ETMs can be improved by these theoretical EPIs. However, be aware that there are some, in some cases, a mislink between the actual energy use. So when you have a new energy technique, make sure the building code and the energy performance indicators that apply in that particular country are in line with the technique you want to introduce, and that you also can persuade the actual residential users by a reduced energy use on their energy bill. In most cases, there are financial benefits, but in some cases, as for example, the heat pump in the past, we see some misfits over there. And it would also benefit, of course, especially to the Dutch, because we want to do everything for the smallest amount of money possible to reduce the investment cost for the principal. That was my conclusion, resulting together, of course, improving the reliability was also a great issue for the people we interviewed, and that results in this complete framework. When you have a new technique, please have a look if you can comply with these suggestions to improve the adoption rate to the max. That was my presentation. I hope you can find some elements for your own benefit, for your own usage, and I'm happy, of course, to answer your questions.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Bram. I think we can have a virtual claps for Bram before we move on to the next speakers. Okay, thank you. And I think we can have the questions at the end. Now, please for Pak Zakri, Professor Tarmidi to make his presentations.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sarah, for your invitation. Okay, Assalamualaikum and very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for ITS for inviting me to give a little, to share my knowledge a little bit on the social sustainability based on location-based indicator for residential area. So this topic, basically, we want to measure, we want to assess the sustainability level of residential area, focusing on the affordable housing first, and then the second one only focus on the social aspect. So not the whole sustainability level aspect. So in sustainability, we have so many aspects, environment, economic, social, and so on. So this study only focus on the social aspect. So before that, I'm going to share with you about UTM a little bit. So this is our lovely UTM. Currently, we have a lake inside our campus, main campus. Currently, we have 3 main campus. The first main campus is in UTM Johor Bahru, which is the southern area of Malaysia. The second one is in the heart of Malaysia, UTM Kuala Lumpur, and then the third one is in UTM Cawangan Pagoh, a little bit farther than in the middle of Kuala Lumpur and also Johor Bahru. So, and we have 7 faculties. So currently we have 9,000 postgraduate, 15,000 undergraduate, with 4,900 international students, with 1,600 academic staff. So this is our current UTM, and then this one is our new current technology, not technology, but our new faculty. Okay, in 2018, before this we have 18 faculties, and then we synergize all these faculties into 7. So we have a faculty of engineering, Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, Faculty of Built Environment and Surveying, Faculty of Science, Azman Hashim International Business School, Razak Faculty of Technology and Informatics, and last one is Malaysia Japan International Institute of Technology. So me and my team is in Faculty of Built Environment and Surveying. Okay, so under this faculty we have 6 departments: Department of Architecture, Department of Quantity Surveying, Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Department of Landscape Architecture, Department of Real Estate, and Department of Geoinformation. Okay, I'm under Department of Geoinformation, and this study basically is a combination or integration of my department, Department of Geoinformation, and also Department of Real Estate. Okay, this is our current bachelor degree program. So for undergraduate, we have Bachelor of Geoinformatics, Bachelor of Science Geoinformatics, and also Bachelor of Engineering Geoinformatics. For master, we have Master of Science, both of course, and also for research, we have Master of Philosophy. Under that, we have Master of Geoinformatics, Geomatic, and Remote Sensing. And for PhD, we have PhD for Geoinformatics, Geomatic, and Remote Sensing. So just a little bit background of UTM and also FABU and my department, Geoinformation. So now we're going back to our main topic, what I'm going to share today. So as I said previously, I'm going to share how we're going to assess the surrounding area of affordable housing in terms of social aspect only. Okay, we have another study on the environmental aspect and also other aspect, but still not finished yet. So I cannot. Maybe I can share a little bit lah on that later on. Okay, my content, my sharing today, a little bit on introduction, and then the problem that we facing previously, and then from there we come up with the aim and objective, and then the method that will be used, that have been used inside the study, and then a little bit on the result, and lastly the conclusion. Okay, so as we know, housing is a basic requirement. So everybody want to live inside the house. In Malaysia, not everybody able to buy their own house. So government of Malaysia has proposed to have affordable housing since 1980s, 1990s, something like that, to give opportunity to people from middle class and also lower income to own their own housing. So several affordable housing has been launched by government and also from private sector, including, so the first one is from this one is for Malaysia from Malaysian government in one of the state in Sarawak. So this one is for one other state in Selangor, and this one Prima is under private sector. This one Rumawip under one of the state, Kuala Lumpur state, and others lah. So we have implementation from government sector and also from private sector lah, to cater on the affordable housing. So sustainability, when we talk about housing, we also want to see either this area is sustainable or not. So because they will impact on the population growth, the urbanization, slum, poverty, and so on. So social aspect in sustainable housing represent the well-being of the resident that live in the residential housing. Okay, so from there, from our study, from previous study, from previous model, it showed that the study is not focused on the social factor. Mostly, for example, that they focus on the environmental or the building structure and so on. So in terms of social aspect, most of the study not focused on, less emphasis on the social aspect. So and then insufficient study on spatial analysis. So they have some of the study say that okay, this is the model, but they less emphasis on the spatial aspect or the location. Is the surrounding is okay or not? So we need to have something on to measure the sustainability level. And then the sustainability level of developed affordable housing is precarious. It is a little bit on the problem, what we have studied previously. And then from there, we come out with this aim, okay, to study. The first one, we want going to study what is the indicator to assess the sustainability level in terms of social aspect. Okay, and then after we study, we can assess lah from there. We can define what we can identify what is the indicator, the sub indicator, and then how do we going to define this indicator and also how to score this indicator. Okay, from there we come up with the 3 objectives. The first one is to identify the indicator from previous study and then from interview and so on. Okay, and then the second one, we analyze the sustainability level from social aspect, and then lastly we assess the sustainability level of affordable housing. Okay, this is the method that has been used in this study. So the first one, we identify the indicator that related to sustainability, and then from there we list out, okay, what is the aspect that focus on the social aspect only. So from there we come out with 5 main indicator, which is public transportation, okay, public community, religion, safety, and also health. From there we go to the second stage, which is the analysis part. We make spatial analysis, we make buffering, we make network analysis, we make navigation analysis, and so on. And then from there, we make combination, integration of all the scoring, and then we normalize the score to get the result. So the result consists of score of each indicator, the total sum, and the normalized score, and then from there we can get the sustainability level in terms of social aspect. All right, so this is 5 main indicator and also the sub indicator. So the first indicator is public transportation, means that we want to see how far the affordable housing to the public transport. In Malaysia, we have train station, and also we have bus. Beside that, we also have taxi and Grab. Yeah, we have Grab, and then we have so many online application for taxi right now, but that one is not included in our study, okay, because we want to see the public transportation first. So we have LRT and MRT in Kuala Lumpur, and then we want to see the distance from the affordable housing to the station of LRT or MRT. And then the second one is the distance from the affordable housing to the bus terminal or bus station. Okay, this one, the second one is religion, because Malaysia is well known as Islamic country, so we only focus on 2. Okay, that's the data that we have for this study. We have masjid and also surau, maybe musola in Indonesia, known as musola or so on. Okay, and then the third one is the public community area, including the Balai Raya, Dewan Orang Ramai, and Dewan Serbaguna. This one is the area that most of people doing the event and so on. Okay, and then in terms of safety, we focus on the police station. Okay, and then for the health, we going to see the distance between the affordable housing with the hospital or clinic. This one is government hospital and also government clinic, not include the private sector because the data is quite limited. Okay, then we're going to see the result. Okay, this is the result, the score result for public community facility. So from here, if we see here, we only have 12 affordable housing. Oh, I forgot to mention that the affordable housing that we select inside this study, mostly high-rise affordable high-rise housing, not a landed housing lah. Okay, because most of the affordable housing that has been developed in Malaysia is high-rise building, apartment, condominium, and so on, something like that. Okay, so only 12 that selected inside this case study, in this study. Because if we want to take the whole area, we take a longer time, and then the data is not capable to handle, and so on, the limited of data and time lah, basically. Okay, from there we can see that we give the score for each affordable housing. For example, this one, the first one, they have Balai Raya, but the distance to Dewan Orang Ramai is quite far, so the score is lower, and also distance to Dewan Serbaguna is quite far, so we got lower score lah. Then the total score we get, and then we get the percentage for this indicator only. So from here we see that 50-50, not really lah, not all the affordable housing is have the highest score of this one is public community. Okay, the second analysis is on the health score, the distance from hospital and also clinic. Okay, most of the affordable housing is near around 1.5 kilometer to 2.5 kilometer to hospital, so it's quite near lah in this our study area. Okay, but for clinic is quite far a little bit. So the total score for health indicator quite high, 83% and 100%. Okay, and then the next indicator is religion. So because we only have two, and both for Islamic religion, so it's quite biased lah. But it's okay. We can use this as a fundamental indicator lah. Okay. For example, this one, this quite far from masjid, so the score is 1. Then, but it's quite near to surau, so the score is 2. Higher in terms of score of surau. So the total score and then the percentage lah. From there, we can see that 5 of the affordable housing is quite far from the religion area, religion places. So the score is quite low, and 4 of the affordable housing quite high number because it's near masjid and also near surau, something like that. Okay, and then for safety indicator, police station, quite far. All of the affordable housing quite far from the police station. It take a lot of time. So maybe if there's some crime happen, police will take a longer time to arrive to this affordable housing. So in terms of safety score is quite low. Okay, from there for public demonstration, I forgot to put here. Okay, but we have over here. Okay, from here we can see that the total score for public community, health, religion, safety, and public transportation, we can give score for each sub-indicator. Then from there we can sum up all the score, and then from there we can normalize the score because some of the score have 5 over 5, and then other have 1 over 2 over 2. So the scoring is not the same. So we need to normalize the score. Then from there we can see that the sustainability level on the 2 of the affordable housing have 40% sustainability level, and other than that is lower than 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 of the affordable housing quite low in terms of score, in terms of social aspect. Okay, so this is from there we can make a graph for all the sustainable affordable housing. So in terms of sustainability, most of the affordable housing in our study area is not achieve even 50% of sustainability level in terms of social aspect. So means that we need to do something lah for this affordable housing. Maybe we need to have all some of the sub-indicator like this in terms of public transportation, religion, public communication, safety, and health near of this affordable housing area. And then from there we can come up with the map of the affordable housing. Okay, from here we can map for each housing which one is near. This one over here is Kuala Lumpur city center. So means that all our study area is just suburban area lah, not the urban area. Okay. So that's why maybe the score is quite low in terms of the sub-indicator that we already identified in this study. Okay. So from there we can see that we can say that we can identify the sustainability level in terms of social aspect using spatial analysis and also for scoring methodology. Okay, we can use that, and then so we can also say that most of the current affordable housing in this study area in terms of social aspect is less sustainable. So that's what we can conclude the second one. And then to improve this, we can include more sub-indicator and also more indicator. For example, we can put, as I said previously, the distance to city center, and then the Grab or the application, the what you call it, not navigation, public transportation in terms of online application, maybe can be part of the indicator. Beside that, we can also put another religion as part of the religion indicator, and then maybe others lah. We can also include environmental aspect or economical aspect or other aspect from SDG lah, social development goal. So that's basically what this study is all about that I want to share today. Okay, and then if you want to contact me, feel free to contact me using my email, or you can go to my website lah. Okay, my email zakri.tarmidi@utm.my or zakri.tarmidi@gmail.com. My website people.utm.my/zakri.tarmidi. I think that's all. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zakri. And can I have a virtual round of applause for Dr. Zakri, please? Okay. So I think from the two presenters, we have seen quite a broad or inclusive aspects of sustainability, especially in terms of housing or residential buildings. From Dr. Bram, we see more about the energy performance and also the economic and policy making or the user experience. And then from Dr. Zakri, we see them more from the social aspects. And I think what is interesting also is that when we talk about sustainability, we cannot see them in one perspective. Before we see them in three aspects of environmental, economic, and social. But then now also there is a cultural aspect that have become also considerations. There are also discussions about behavioral aspects, so how it is impacting, for example, the use of energy, how we use energy, and also how the social relationship, how the religion, for example, is a dominant in the different cultures, so that it became one of the things that must be looked into in Malaysia. I think there's a lot of insights from the best practice and the research from the two presenters. Before I go to the question sheet, does anyone here want to ask in person for the two presenters? Yes, Bu Maria. Please.
Thank you so much, Ibu Sarah. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And thank you so much, Professor Bram and Dr. Zakri, for the very interesting presentation. I myself, I'm doing a couple research in green building. So your presentation was really engaging. Thank you so much. So I have a couple of questions for Professor Bram. I just wonder, Professor, because when you talk about energy saving and so on in the context of Netherlands, I have two questions. Maybe later on we can discuss further, but for this time being, two questions. The first, when you assess and try to have novel breakthrough framework to reduce the energy use in the new building, how can you manage the old building? I believe in many cities in your country, there are a lot of old buildings, right? We also have problem here in Indonesia because when we encourage people to implement the energy saving building, for example, we always have problem with the old building that need more effort than the new one. So I just wonder if you can share about the old building. And then the second, you mentioned about the technology you use at the roof to trap the heat and then later on use for warming. We are warming the house. We are in Indonesia. We have completely different situation right now. In Surabaya, we have very, very hot weather. So the temperature is extreme. So I just wonder if somehow we can connect, because three of us, ITS, UTM, and also your university, we are doing something in this regard. So how actually to handle the opposite situation like what happened in Indonesia, because we have extreme weather and almost everyone using air conditioner. And what we learned from Hong Kong experience, everyone using air conditioner and the weather, the outdoor become hotter, and then we are moving in a cycle. Hotter air create hotter environment, hotter ambient, using air conditioner, and go on and become worse and worse. So I just would like to ask if you have any comment or idea about tropical country like us. So that goes for two questions go for Professor Bram and for Pak Zakri. Thank you so much for your interesting presentation. I believe if you also put energy that presented by Pak Bram in your factor, your sustainability factor, it's going to be triple bottom line, right? And it is very good. And for future work, it will be very nice. I just wonder, when you talk about religion, Pak, you talk about mosque and also surau, it is exactly reflecting Indonesian situation, because most of our people here also Muslim, and they use a lot of water, Pak, for wudu, Pak. For wudu, we need a lot of water, right? So when we talk about the existence of surau and masjid, I just wonder if you also think about reusability or recyclability of water in surau and mosque, because I believe in the current situation, especially during the COVID-19, we experience extreme threat of water provision. Previously, we do like washing and wudu 5 times a day, for example, but now under COVID, everyone encouraged to wash with the flowing water, and it trigger a lot of water use. So I just wonder if we can somehow learn and we can work together, three university and Ibu Sarah also from architecture. So it's very nice combination. Thank you so much. Back to you, Bu Sarah.
Thank you very much, Bu Maria. So please, maybe first, Dr. Bram would like to answer.
Yeah, well, thank you for your enthusiastic questions, Maria. Your first question regarding the old buildings, what are we doing to improve the energy performance of old buildings? Well, for the old buildings, as I already explained shortly, the insulation, the decree on insulation was not yet applicable. So only in 1992, a first basic kind of insulation was installed with an R value of 2.5. Nowadays we're heading towards values of 5 at least. So 5 watts per square meter Kelvin. That means that we are often re-insulating buildings to improve their thermal resistance. However, buildings constructed before 1928-25 didn't have a cavity at all. So you don't have an inner blade, a cavity, and then an outer facade, an external wall. So there's no cavity to fill with these foams. Often we use foams to re-insulate these kinds of walls. And that means that we often apply new walls at the inside. So a layer of insulation will be applied, often glued, not at that circular, to be honest, but often insulation is glued at the inside and then we again glue, for example, a gypsum board to it, and that's then the inside. So that's how we re-insulate walls, for example. Roofs are slightly easier to re-insulate. Floors, it depends if it's a wooden, a timber construction, or already a concrete construction. So, and if you have a cavity underneath your floor, the so-called crawl space available or not. But as you already hear by my suggestions, how to improve it, often insulation is quite a main focal point. Furthermore, we can see that there are some natural investment moments, as we call them. So when your original heating system breaks down, you buy a new one, and that new one is often already much better than the old one. For refrigerators, you can also imagine that when your refrigerator breaks down, the next refrigerator that you can buy in a shop already after 5 years could be interesting to look forward for a new refrigerator system. Well, the same applies up to recent years regarding the natural gas boiler systems we have in the Netherlands. However, that's not the case anymore, of course, where we're not allowed to use natural gas anymore. So currently, quite some people are focusing on hybrid systems. So you have a natural gas boiler system with a kind of heat pump installed in it. We call it hybrid systems, but still you're using that natural gas. So these new households, or the new situation for these households will probably become that they will make use individually of heat pumps, getting the heat out of the soil or out of the open air, or networks. So there are approximately 1 million of our 80 million residents, approximately 1 million people are being heated by network systems, district heating systems. And these district heater systems are still allowed to incinerate waste. However, in a perfect sustainable society, we don't have waste anymore. So for the greater future, that will also still be a problem, to be honest. Or also biomass. Biomass is also considered as an option in regards. Geothermal energy is not that widely applied, but could in the long run also become maybe an interesting option. So a good question, and we're still searching how to get rid of that natural gas. But for the last decades, it was all aiming at improving the heat resistance of your roof, your floor, and your walls, to be honest. Your second question was about what to do regarding techniques and measures in your area, in your geographical area. Well, we have some collaboration, for example, with Curaçao. That's also close to the equator, of course. However, Curaçao is an island where you have wind. When your island is slightly bigger than wind, the wind velocities could be lower, and then you cannot benefit from the wind. So that could be an issue. I think double roof systems are very interesting to have a look at. So you have a roof, you have a cavity, and again a roof. And that cavity could be open, or when temperatures significantly drop, could even be closed. Because when the cavity is closed, it's a kind of small insulation package. If the wind, if the air stands still, you have a kind of insulation package. However, in your area, often I think the best way is to have it open, that the wind can free flows, and you create a system of shading. Also having a significant overhang, so that your roof is significantly larger than the area your external walls cover, that will also be quite beneficiary. And I think if the prices of phase change materials, especially based on minerals, the mineral phase change materials, could drop, that could also be quite an interesting technique, so that you make use of phase change materials to store excessive heat, and during the nights, when in some cases the temperatures slightly drop, they gave away the heat again, so to minimize the peak temperatures. That would be my suggestion, but I agree with you. We need to see some opportunities to reduce our dependency of these air conditioning, traditional electric air conditioning systems. In that regards, maybe also using the underground, already 1 meter below the surface, the temperature is quite steady. The temperature you find there in the underground is approximately the average temperature the whole year around. If you go deeper, you could also make use of that reservoir of thermal energy and try to come to an exchange, making it possible that you reduce temperatures within the built environment in your area. That would be my suggestions.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bu Maria. Thank you, Professor Bram. And maybe next, Prof. Zakri to answer Bu Maria's questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. Bu Maria, terima kasih. A very good question. How going to reduce this? Okay, basically we have some initiative in Malaysia, a little bit, not all the area lah, just some initiative to reuse all this water that has been used for wudu, for internal usage. Okay, we can reuse and make it usable for another, for plantation and so on. Okay, we have some kind of initiative, something like that lah, to reduce. So means that all the water that has been used, we can reuse again. Okay, especially for plantation. Not all the plantation can be used, but some of the some type of plantation like oil palm, we can use something like this lah. Okay, that's some of the initiative that being done currently, and also hopefully we can use it throughout all the country lah, maybe.
It is something that very soon become compulsory for all masjid and also surau, or still in debate?
It's still in debate because it's still an early initiative. Okay, because it's still in case study area lah. Okay, if we want to move further, we need to come up to make it as a policy lah, from in terms of state, in terms of a country, and then after that we can move forward lah later on. Start with the small initiative.
Thank you, Pak.
Hopefully it answers your question.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting, Bu Maria, because in ITS Masjid, we have started that initiative to reuse the water from wudu to water the plants. Several, yeah, I think, because musola in Surau, I think, is very common. So I wonder if each apartment did not have their own surau. So I think Zakri mentioned that some of the apartments are located not quite far from the surau. Or
okay, to answer that question, basically what we got from the data maybe some of it is maybe accurate, some of it is not accurate, but based on the data that we get, that's the information that we have lah. Okay, for masjid, then it's quite easier to get the data. Then for surau, it's quite limited for the data lah.
Yeah, because usually they were organized by communities. So
yes, but not all the affordable housing have their own surau lah. Sometimes they need to go out further from the affordable housing area.
Yeah, it's also interesting that by using your maps, and then we can perhaps starting to make a concept of neighborhood unit. So how big is the neighborhood that will cater in terms of sustainability? I think that is one of the further topics that can be developed from your research. And also,
yes, Dr. Sarah, I do agree.
Yeah.
Because as I said, this study is fundamental or basic to make an assessment. So further on, this one also for high-rise building only. So maybe in next few years we can do some assessment for the landed housing area. Okay, because the landed housing area different the environment with the high-rise building area.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I have a question for Dr. Bram. I wonder, you have different types of housing that you look. Is there like an initial finding about how the shape of the house will have some impacts on the energy performance, for example? Because I think most of the old Dutch houses is very narrow, so they're not wide. So does that have anything to do with the energy?
Indeed, a good question. The basic principle is the more concise, the more compact your house is, the easier it will be to achieve a proper energy performance. So roofs with a roof bay or additional extension to your house will always have quite an impact on the performance, because when we look back, if you allow me to shortly, please give me a minute to shortly share that equation with you. I need to go to the proper slide now. Yes. If I take you back to this slide again, here you can see that the ground surface is taken into account, and that the surface of the thermal shell has been taken into account. So when you have maybe a cubicle, so to speak, the shape of yours is a cube, and you add an extension at the backside, for example, that facilitates your kitchen or maybe even a bathroom, so to speak, then your thermal shell is, of course, increasing significantly more than your ground surface, because that extension has only a small ground surface, but it has quite some walls, and quite the roof will approximately be the same size as your ground surface that you add. So you will have some extra budget regarding the allowable energy use. However, the expected energy consumption of your house slightly depends, of course, is depending on your insulation package and the kind of glazing that's installed in that extension. But what you gain here as an extra energy cost, it will be much higher than the budget you will receive in the lower part of your computation. Just as in real life, making the thermal surface as small, as concise as possible will be the best benefit. And when you have terraced houses, as you indeed have in the Netherlands quite a lot, then you don't have, or at least we expect that you will not lose heat to your neighbors, because at your neighbor's place, approximately the indoor temperature will also be around 20 degrees Celsius. And the neighbors of that house will also have approximately 20 degrees Celsius. So only regulations apply regarding the noise transition. So there is a cavity between these houses nowadays. In the past it wasn't, but nowadays there needs to be a cavity. to make sure that you will not hear all the noises of your neighbors. So that, but not there's no regulation regarding the thermal resistance, because we don't expect there is an energy transition at all from one side to the other, because the temperatures are the same. So terrace houses, apartments are quite interesting solutions in solving this energy problem. It would be much easier when we wouldn't have any detached houses at all.
Okay, thank you. I think there's one question from Hilna. Do you want to ask in person, Hilna? Or if you want, you can turn on your mic and ask in person. I think this is for Dr. Zakri. Okay. If not, I think I will. I'll read her questions. Thank you, Professor Bram and Dr. Zakri, for the excellent presentation. I want to ask Dr. Zakri, can we use the method to calculate the affordability of houses in rural areas? Because as we know, villages generally have few public facilities, so they must have little score. Or maybe there are other methods to calculate the affordability of houses in those areas.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah. And thank you for the person who asking. I don't know the name.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is a very good question. Very interesting. Okay. What I already discussed is about sustainability assessment. So for us to see the affordability, we need another data. We can use the same method for scoring, and also we can use multi-criteria analysis to further investigate. Okay, but in terms of the indicator will be different. The demographic and then the housing price, and also the area of that housing and so on. So we can put it as indicator, and then from there we can refine the scoring for each indicator or sub indicator, and then from there we can see the affordability. Is it affordable, not affordable, less affordable, and so on. Hopefully that answer your the question.
Yes, for Hilna. Is Hilna here? Yeah, I think that's also my curiosity, why education is not part of this. But I assume that because it's in urban areas, then education, I think, is okay, that's not becoming a problem, so that maybe from the interview that those kind of topics did not mention. So is that the
To answer the question is not as direct as this lah. So maybe the education is one of the or the skill lah. Right now we moving towards previously we moving towards more higher education, but right now we're moving towards TVET, means that we're moving towards the skill part. Okay, from there we can rearrange back lah. We can rearrange, and then we can see back either is suitable or not for the rural area, because the rural area is the demand, and also the what they require is different from the urban area.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think this in terms of the framework, this could be applied in rural areas, but surely with some adjustments regarding to what are the focus or the priorities in rural areas.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone who would like to ask in person? I'm sorry that I think I have a problem with my Google Sheet, so I need the committee to let me know if there's other questions. Okay.
Maybe if I may, Sarah.
Yes.
Maybe interesting to tell in this regards of social housing for the knowledge of Professor Zakri. Social housing in the Netherlands, the adoption rate of energy techniques was for a certain time quite low, because there was a problem of return on investments in social housing. So if a social housing association wanted to improve the energy label, the energy performance of their houses, they were not allowed to increase the rent of these houses for that particular purpose. And that played that was a problem quite a while. And later on, we introduced new regulations that, based on points, you can increase your rent if you change that number of quality points for your apartment of house. So later on, we introduced that social housing associations are allowed to increase slightly, of course, the rent when certain energy techniques are being adopted. Because the idea is, if you need to pay less for your energy bill, and it's also, well, quite nice if the investor in the energy techniques also can return their investment in that regard. Is this currently an issue in your region, Zakri, if I may ask?
Not really, because the housing price is not depend on the electrical or water billing, but more towards the price of the not the housing price, the land price. If it's near the urban area, then the housing will be higher. That's and there's no current, they need some new study on this particular part lah. Okay, how the housing price affected from what indicator. Still in study, not as simple as that lah.
Well, the housing associations in the Netherlands are currently quite anxious that the residents will not be able to pay the rent anymore because the energy prices are this high. So people have worries, and also the social housing associations have worries. Well, if they can't pay their energy bill, they might also not be able to pay us anymore. So therefore, there's also now a trigger. They have a social housing association only exists because they have the task to provide affordable housing. And housing that consumes a lot of energy is not affordable anymore. So, and also with the risk of not getting the rent in anymore, they are adopting now these energy techniques. But last month, it really became an issue with these, well, these energy prices tripled for electric energy, for natural gas. So especially in social housing, people are quite worried regarding the energy bill. So, and don't hope this future will unfold also in your area.
Yeah, hopefully.
Consider in the nearby future.
Yeah, hopefully we're moving towards there lah. Hopefully in near future.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think also in Indonesia about the label, the eco label for buildings, we still, I think, limited in commercial one, so they have not been applied in individual or private residence. So it hasn't been as advanced in other countries, I think, but there have been like a self-assessment tools, and also I think most of the participants here are students from the ecological courses. So in ITS, at maybe the five or sixth semester, each department has like an enrichment course relating to sustainability. For example, in our department in architecture, we give courses about design construction sustainability, and then we introduce how different assessment, that self-assessment, at least for giving awareness for our students to start maybe rethinking about how their lifestyle impacts on energy use, just the daily activities, that sort of things. And I think so these two presenters here have give some best practice or examples to our students, so hopefully they can get more insights.
Sure.
Okay, maybe Dr. Zakri or Professor Bram have something else to add on before we close. I think there is no questions. Yeah.
I think for my part, I think I just want to say thank you very much for ITS for inviting me for this session. It's very good session, and also I learned something from Dr. Bram. Okay, on the green building. Actually, green building also part of my early study before I focus on the affordability, sustainability of affordable housing. Okay, I know a little bit on the green building and so on, the development, and because some of the building in Malaysia also being developed based on the green building concept, but mostly focus on the government building lah. So thank you very much again for the for ITS for inviting me, and glad to see you, Dr. Bram. Hope we can collab in near future maybe, and also Bu Maria for your question, so on, and Dr. Sarah as a moderator. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zakri. And maybe from Dr. Bram, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you. Of course, also from my point of view, thank you very much for organizing this lovely meeting with a great co-presenter and a great moderator. Thank you very much, and thank you to all the attendants in being interested in this topic. And let's make the world a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you very much for both presenters, Professor Zakri and Professor Bram. And hopefully there will be other collaborations in the future between ITS, ETM, and Sakshan. Thank you, Bu Maria. Thank you. I think Pak Udi Subakti is also here. Yeah, thank you very much all. I'm sorry if there has something inappropriate in my moderating today. Okay, back to MC Steel.
Thank you so much, Bu Sarah, Pak Bram, Pak Sari. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Entrop and Dr. Zakri for the excellent lectures for today's session. And thank you so much, Dr. Sarah, for conducting these wonderful sessions. So as our appreciations, we would like to present a certificate awarding to our speakers and also our moderator for today's session. So please, committee. Okay, it starts showing. The first slide is the certificate of appreciation for Associate Professor Bram Entrop. Thank you so much, Dr. Entrop, for the lectures today. And the second one is for Dr. Zakri. And the last but not least for Dr. Sarah Cahyadini as our moderator for today's. Once again, thank you very much for all participants and also lecturers for today, and I would like to announce that next week we will still have GLS with more international speakers and more interesting topics for you guys to come. So before we end our lecture today, yeah, this is the announcement for next week's GLS on SDGs. So if you would like to come, you are very welcome to join our next week GLS on SDGs. Thank you so much, committee. Now, before we end our lecture today, we invite to all participants as well as the honorable speakers and moderator to take a group photo. So to all participants, please kindly open your camera if you don't have any issue with your device, because we will have a group photo in minutes, in seconds. Okay, so please committee, if you like to help me. Okay, so let's take the picture. Okay, it's now showing. Okay, so let's take a picture. Give your best smile in 3, 2, 1. Once again, we have a couple of slides in 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think we got all the slides captured. Thank you so much once again to all speakers, moderator, and also participants. So I hope to see you in the future. So please be safe and healthy. Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
you
afternoon.
all.
Bye-bye.
Oh dear.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. So please, the committee, you may end the sessions. Thank you so much.
Okay, but before that, I would like to inform all the participants to drop your feedback here. And thank you so much for today's GLS and permission to end the session in 3, 2,